Welcome to the Cosmic Business Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Pallas, and this podcast is for soulful entrepreneurs who want to harness the cosmic power of astrology to elevate their message, unlock flow, and attract their best clients ever. Join me every week and get excited to discover how you can use the energy of the cosmos to get the business breakthrough you've been waiting for. Alrighty, it's time to talk about the planet Saturn, because this is where you're going to learn your biggest lessons, not only in business, but in life in general. Saturn is our teacher planet, and it's very important, in my opinion, to understand your Saturn and also what Saturn is activating in your chart at the moment, in order for you to make the most of the lessons and the potential challenges and opportunities that Saturn can bring into your work in the world. Because Saturn in our chart is often reflective of our work in the world. Before we dive into what Saturn does, what Saturn has been doing lately, I want to tell you a bit of a story about the mythology behind the planet Saturn. I love talking about the mythology because it can really help us to understand how that planet operates and why it brings what it brings. So Saturn was originally the last planet that we could see with our naked eye in the sky. It was thought to be the last planet. So for that reason, it was always associated with the boundary, with the limits, with the end of our ability to see. You know, that's the last planet. There's nothing further than that. However, obviously since then, we've got telescopes and satellites and all sorts of other things that we use to view the planets, and we found outer planets and we found more asteroids and we found all sorts of stuff out there in the beauty of space. But at the time of the ancients, when astrology was part of life, when looking to the sky was a part of life, Saturn was the last planet you could see. Now, mythologically, Saturn is also known as Kronos. Kronos was not a god. Kronos was one of the Titans. So the Titans actually came before the Greek gods. Kronos was the father of Zeus or Jupiter. So we think of Saturn as being the father of Jupiter. However, Kronos actually ate his children to prevent himself from being dethroned as king of the gods. But that was only until he was tricked by his wife into swallowing a stone instead of his child Zeus. And obviously, Zeus went on to overthrow his father and become king of the gods. So in astrology, Saturn or Kronos is associated with restriction, limitation, with responsibility, with that father figure in our life. At first, that image of Saturn can seem a little bit depressing, but it also brings a sense of structure, discipline, and regulation to our lives. Now, because Saturn was the last planet we could see, or is the last planet we can see with our naked eye, it represents the limits of time. It's very much connected to time. It's very much connected to our legacy. It's reminding us all the time of our boundaries, our responsibilities, our commitments, and it's bringing a sort of definition to our lives. In some people's charts where Saturn is very prominent, those themes will be even more strong in those individuals. You know, that sense of responsibility, of boundaries, of structure, of authority. Those things will be very prominent. You know, for instance, if you have a Capricorn rising or an Aquarius rising, Saturn is the ruler of your chart. So Saturn is going to have a bigger influence over what you do, and you might find that those issues of responsibility come up a lot for you. But that can also be a great opportunity. And people with strong Saturn are often very good at managing responsibility and dealing with authority and understanding boundaries and limits and working with them in quite a productive way. So those are good things to know. And Saturn's position in our chart, in addition to, whether or not it's the ruler of your chart, where Saturn is placed in your chart is going to help us find out where we might experience challenges, limitations, but also what we might have to overcome in this lifetime in order to build our authority in some way. So I want you to consider where Saturn is, as in what sign it is in and what house it is in your chart, and what that might be teaching you about your work in the world and the boundaries in your life, or the challenges and the potential opportunities that you have to work with your Saturn. Saturn is also telling us often our main work in the world. What is it that we are actually here to do? What is it that we're actually here to master? Because when we think about time and the planet of time, we know that mastery takes time. And if we do our Saturn, what we're doing is mastering that skill or that challenge that's in our chart. And that is the work of our life. And that can often be really closely associated with what our mission is in our businesses. So let's talk about what Saturn is doing and how it might be showing up and what's going on with it right now. So just to give you a bit of an insight into what Saturn's been up to lately, Saturn has been hanging out in the sign of Aquarius since the end of 2020, like literally right at the end of 2020. And now, as we get into the final months of 2022 and into early 2023 at the time of recording, it's doing its final tour of Aquarius. It's actually, retrograde at the moment, but it's going to be going through the final degrees of Aquarius over the next few months before it moves on to stir up some stuff in Pisces from the start of March 2023. Now, in a moment, I'm going to take you through what Saturn in Aquarius, or Saturn in general, could be teaching you in terms of the business angles, the business houses rather, in your chart. Now, this isn't going to apply to everyone. This is really going to apply to the people who have been experiencing Saturn in their work houses over the past year. And obviously, you can be thinking forward in terms of looking at your chart and going, am I going to experience Saturn in one of my work houses going forward into 2023 when Saturn moves into Pisces? But generally, wherever Saturn has been in your chart, it's been teaching you over the past 18 months or so something really important about what you need to tidy up in your life, where you need to take some more responsibility, where you need to reset boundaries. That's what Saturn is there to do. It might also be showing you some fears that you have, because Saturn can also represent those fears. Remember Kronos, I don't know if I explained this well enough, but Kronos as the king of the gods, the Titan, he was deeply afraid of being overtaken by his children. Obviously, that fear got him in the end because Zeus overthrew him. But Saturn is also representative of our fears and those really deep-seated fears. And Pluto is often much more closely tied to power and control. Saturn can also be related to control, and particularly because our fears and our need to control are often really closely related, right? So wherever Saturn has been in the past 18 months, this has been an area for you to work through, for you to learn lessons, for you to clean up, for you to reset boundaries, all of that stuff. Globally, having Saturn in Aquarius has meant we've been on a collective level learning some really big lessons about institutional rules, radical change, technology, humanitarianism. We've been forced to confront some big social justice issues, climate issues, political issues that have been kind of kept under the rug for a long time and have come up to be re-evaluated. Saturn in Aquarius has been a big restructuring of some of these very Aquarian issues. We've also really had to confront the ways that we use technology and social media in our lives, which are also Aquarian issues. And in many cases, we've had to realize that the systems our social media, our technological systems need more boundaries and regulations if we're going to use them effectively for the long term, or if they're going to work for us in the long term. We've learned a lot about the need to regulate some aspects of social media and the need to manage and put boundaries around our social media time. This has been a big lesson for us over the past couple of years. So consider that as well as we're going through this. Wherever Saturn is placed in your chart, just to recap, it's encouraging you to look for commitment, longevity. It's encouraging you to think about the long term. It's not about quick wins. This planet, although it can present you with big challenges and potential limitations, it's here to help you play the long game, which is why it's such an important planet to look to in our businesses. Okay, so that all said, let's have a look at a few places Saturn can really dial things up or help you hone things when it comes to your business activities. Specifically, we're looking at the work houses, the 2nd, the 6th, and the 10th houses. So if you haven't listened to my episode on the 12 houses, which I highly recommend you go and listen to if you get a chance, the 2nd house is related to money, our self-worth, our values. So how we make money, our personal resources, how we grow our resources, all that sort of thing. That's the 2nd house. The 6th house is related to our daily work habits. It's related also to our health, but specifically in this case, it's related to how we work, our process of working, right? And our 10th house is related to our business legacy, our public persona, our public profile, our reputation, our professional status, that kind of thing. So that's why we're looking at these 2nd, 6th, and 10th houses as the work houses. Now, the bonus house that I'm going to talk about is the 7th house, and that is related to partnerships. But in this specific case, we're talking about business partnerships or collaborations, close collaborations. It can often be really reflective of client relationships. And that's why I want to bring this up, because I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast are service providers. So if you've experienced Saturn in your 2nd house of money, values, personal resources lately, you've been learning a lot about your sense of self-worth and your ability to generate and manage your income. Now, if you're listening to this at the time when Saturn is in Aquarius, which is right now in 2022, then if you have Saturn in your 2nd house of money, you are a Capricorn rising. Saturn is a particularly important planet for you guys if you're a Capricorn rising. So it's really important to understand what Saturn has been activating for you over the past couple of years. And it will be important always to know what Saturn is activating in your chart. So with Saturn in your 2nd house of money, he wants you to get really serious about your prices, your budget. Are you overspending in your business? Are you leaving money on the table because you haven't raised your prices in 3 years? What is happening in terms of your ability to sell your resources, sell your work, and own your worth? What is happening in this area of your business? Are you really valuing the transformation of your work and being adequately compensated? Are you overcharging? Are you undercharging? What's going on here? You're also taking a hard look at your values when Saturn is hanging out in your 2nd house. What is it that you stand for in business? Have you been acting in integrity with those values? Saturn is going to call you out on this big time if you haven't been acting in integrity with your values. This is also a really good time to reassess the structure of your bookkeeping and payment systems. So is everything set up to help you collect payments in the most effective and efficient ways? Are you being responsible with the way you collect money? Are you keeping an eye on your incomings and outgoings? Do you need more help with this to build a stronger foundation for your business? Because remember, Saturn is here to help us play the long game. This is about, making sure you've really set up the boundaries around how you make and spend your money. Calling all astro-curious entrepreneurs, I want to let you know about a really exciting workshop, and that is the 3 cosmic events you need to know before the close of 2022. Now, this is an action-packed 90-minute masterclass that's going to take you on a deep dive into how this energy and these 3 cosmic events are going to specifically affect you by your rising sign. So this is a sign by sign breakdown on the cosmic energy of the last quarter of 2022. And you're going to want to know these 3 key events and how to navigate them in your business based on your rising sign so that you can make the most of any launches, promotions, new offers that you have coming up. All the details and how to sign up will be in the show notes, so check it out and I hope to see you there. So you have a few more months with Saturn here. If you're listening to this, in October, you have a few more months with Saturn here to make sure you tidy all of this up and get really solid in your wealth creation, as well as in integrity with your values in business. So really pay attention to this part of your life if Saturn is in your second house. And for you right now, that is Capricorn rising. So the next work house we're going to talk about is the 6th house of work and daily habits. At the moment, this is relevant for Virgo rising people. It will change next year when Saturn moves into Pisces. But for right now, Saturn in Aquarius is lighting up 6th house for Virgo rising. So with Saturn here, don't put too much pressure on yourself to be productive. This is about working smarter, not harder. When Saturn comes along to your 6th house, it's teaching us the lessons we need to set ourselves up for the long term. It doesn't want you to burn out. Saturn does not want you to burn out here. He wants you to be more responsible when it comes to your work habits and your work patterns so you can last the distance. So this is where you might want to consider getting some more support. Maybe you need to make a hire in a key area of your business or your life, like a support person in your life so that you can do more work in your business. For example, you might need a nanny or a housekeeper or a virtual assistant to help you move forward in your business with more ease. Those support people. This is a really good time if you've got Saturn in your 6th house, moving through your 6th house, to consider, what's going on with your support team. Do you feel well supported? How productive do you feel on the day-to-day? In addition to that, you also want to consider or reconsider your self-care and your health practices. So while Saturn is moving through these final degrees of Aquarius in the last part of 2022 and into 2023, think about where you can or where you have been making some tweaks to your daily routines so that you're really looking after yourself. Because even though that doesn't sound like it's related to business, we know that we have to be in good physical and mental and spiritual condition in order to operate at our best productivity, our best capacity in business. So this is another thing that Saturn's asking you to put some boundaries, some structure, take some responsibility for is, your health and well-being, your mind, your body, your spirit. This is how you're going to make those big business dreams come true when you look after the vessel that is holding those big dreams, and that is you. Okay, this is our bonus house, the 7th, because I wanted to do these in order. We'll get to the 10th in a moment. But if you are a Leo rising, right now, Saturn is in Aquarius in your 7th house. And this is asking you to get really serious about your business relationships. Now, I see a lot when Saturn comes across into the 7th house. I see a lot of emphasis on boundaries when it comes to client or customer relationships or even collaborations. So, do you need to get some better contracts in place here? Do you need to tidy up your customer onboarding experience or your client onboarding experience? Do you need to get a better contract in place with your marketing agency, your PR agency, whatever it is, like those close collaborations? Where do you need to take more responsibility or to step up a bit when Saturn is in your 7th house? Now, it's particularly important for one-on-one client relationships. So if you're a service provider, this is key for you, but it applies to client relationships on the whole because ultimately we do have a personal connection with each of our customers, even if we have a broader customer base. So this is a really good time to question your business partnerships and your collaborations and your client relationships. Are you attracting your ideal clients here? Are you forming long-term relationships with your clients? Are you creating repeat customers? those kinds of things. But also, do you see a future for the partnerships you've created in your business? Or has the mutual benefit of those things come to an end? And it's totally okay if it has. Saturn here is going to show you that it's time, because Saturn is all about time. Is it time to close down those relationships that are no longer working for you in business? But I really, really think that when you have Saturn in your 7th, it is a great time to set or reset boundaries. Often as service providers particularly, we can get a little complacent about our client boundaries, and we can allow things to continue because we want to make people happy and we want to over deliver and all of those sorts of things. And that's great to an extent, but you really have to be careful about being responsible in business and really understanding where your responsibility for your client begins and ends. And that's what Saturn here is going to ask you to do. All right, let's talk about what happens when Saturn is sitting in your 10th house of career, public reputation, professional profile, all that kind of thing. So this would be for my Taurus rising friends at the moment. This is what's going on for you. You've had Saturn sitting here for almost 2 years, and there has been a lot of restructuring going on in my business, and I know this to be true for a few other Taurus risings that I know. There may have been, with Saturn sitting in your 10th house, a little bit of a pivot in terms of what you're offering or who you serve. You might have had some realizations in terms of what you want your legacy to be, because the 10th house is all about what's your legacy here? What are you building for the long term? So Saturn is here to help you sort out your business, your career sector for the long term. There's no sense keeping on doing things that don't work for you just to make money. You are here to build a lasting legacy in an unconventional way, right? When Saturn is hanging out in your 10th house. And you have Aquarius on your 10th house regardless. So it is an unconventional path for you, Taurus rising. That is the blessing of having Aquarius on the 10th house. So in its final few months in Aquarius, Saturn is going to be checking that you have everything in order for your long-term business or career success. Again, are you in integrity with your public persona and your business values and mission? This isn't the same as what we were talking about with the 2nd house, but we do want to make sure we're in integrity with our public persona when Saturn is up here. And that's where the pivot makes sense, because often we have to move things so that we feel authentic and that we are in alignment and in integrity with our mission. So when Saturn is here, you also want to be thinking about the business structure that you need. You could be thinking about legal things you need to consider, and the team, like all of the things that are around creating your legacy are up here in the 10th house. So are you focused on projects that really matter to you? Have you got the right equipment, the right mentors to help you move forward in the right direction? There is a lot going on here, but that's because this is the foundation of your business. This is the foundation of your legacy. So this needs to be solid in order for you to have a lasting impact. So if you have Saturn going through your 10th house, this is a really important time for you to be focused on the future of your business and setting up those structures, taking responsibility and getting really committed to the future of your business. Okay, so that is what's happening with Saturn in Aquarius in those work houses right now. Obviously, I did not cover all the rising signs. However, if you haven't heard your rising sign here and you want to know more, check out my workshop called The 3 Cosmic Events You Need to Know Before the Close of 2022. I do a deep dive in that workshop on all things Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars for the rest of this year and into 2023. And that is a sign-by-sign breakdown. So you will find out what Saturn has been affecting for you based on your rising sign. Thanks for listening. I will be back again very soon. Thanks for joining me on the Cosmic Business Breakthrough. If you'd like to learn more about what I do, head to sophiapalace.com or follow me at Sophia Palace over on Instagram. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I'd love for you to take a moment and review the show if you found it helpful and share it with a few friends. Thanks again, and I'll speak to you next time.